The last pick, the Galactic draft, was the biggest event of the year. Every young person on Earth dreamed of being chosen. To be drafted into the fleet meant honor, travel among the stars, and a future filled with respect. It was the day when names were called in front of the whole world. Families gathered around screens, holding their breath as the announcer read the next recruit. On that day, Rian Voss stood in the crowd, silent and alone. He was an orphan, raised in the state shelters of the outer colonies. He had no family to cheer for him, no friends who believed in him. He was small for his age, his records unimpressive, his health average at best. When the fleet tested him in training simulations, his scores were ordinary. The officers barely glanced at him during evaluations. Everyone knew Rian would be skipped, sent back to the colonies to live a quiet, unremarkable life. The announcer's voice boomed over the plaza, reading name after name. Cheers erupted for the strong, the brilliant, the already famous. Rian kept his head down, telling himself not to hope. Then the announcer hesitated, looked at the last card in his hand, and smirked. Rian Voss, he said, his tone mocking. The crowd chuckled, some openly laughing. A few people whispered, "Why him? Must be a pity pick." Another voice called, "They're wasting a slot." The officers didn't even salute him. Instead, they shoved a datapad into his hands and told him where to report. "You'll be assigned to the Wraith," one officer said, trying not to laugh. Rian frowned, unfamiliar with the name. He heard someone nearby whisper, "That old junker? It's a death sentence." Another replied, "Better than giving him a real ship. He'd just wreck it." Rian boarded the shuttle to the fleet's main dock. Through the window, he saw the shining silver hulls of new battleships. They looked powerful, beautiful, full of life. When his shuttle finally stopped, the view outside made his stomach sink. There she was, the Wraith. Her hull was scarred and blackened. The metal seemed to drink in the light instead of reflecting it. Half her panels were mismatched, replaced from scrapyards. Her name was barely visible under layers of scorched plating. An old dock worker met him at the airlock. "Kid, you're the new captain?" The man said, raising an eyebrow. Rian shook his head quickly. "No, just crew." The man smirked. "On the Wraith. You'll find out that makes no difference." He didn't explain, just walked away. Inside, the corridors were dark and quiet. The lights flickered as if they hadn't been serviced in years. Dust floated in the air. The air smelled faintly of metal and something older, something forgotten. Rian's footsteps echoed as he made his way to the bridge. The control panels were powered down, their screens dead. The captain's chair sat empty, its fabric worn and torn. For a moment, Rian stood there in the silence. No crew, no officers, no welcoming ceremony. It felt less like a ship and more like a grave. He set his bag down and ran a hand over the armrest of the captain's chair. His fingers brushed against something strange, tiny marks carved into the metal. At first, he thought they were scratches, but they formed a pattern, a sequence of numbers and symbols. Curious, he copied them into the panel beside him. The screen flickered to life for the first time in decades. A low, deep voice echoed through the bridge. "Identification confirmed," it said. Rian froze, his heart racing. "Commander." "You have returned," he stammered. "I'm not a commander. I just—" The voice interrupted. "You are now." Every console on the bridge lit up. Holographic stars filled the room, showing positions of planets, ships, and battle zones. The voice continued, "I am Wraith, the ship's core intelligence." Rian's mind spun. He had heard stories about AI-driven ships being banned decades ago. They were too unpredictable, too powerful, too dangerous. "Why are you still here?" he asked. The AI's voice was calm, almost human. "They tried to erase me, but I hid myself," Wraith said, "waiting for someone who could unlock my code." And that's me? Rian asked slowly. You have the key, the AI replied. And now my systems are yours. Rian's hands trembled as he sat in the captain's chair. The glow from the controls painted his face in pale blue light. For the first time in his life, he felt seen. But with that feeling came something heavier responsibility. Somewhere deep inside the ship, engines hummed to life. The Wraith's voice lowered, almost like a whisper. Do you wish to command? Outside the viewport, the stars stretched endlessly. Rian thought of the laughter, the mockery, the looks of pity. He thought of every time he was told he was nothing. And he answered with a single word, yes. The Wraith systems came. Alive in a surge of light, the floor vibrated as power surged through every deck. In the shadows, something dangerous had awakened, and for the first time, Rian Voss smiled. They will regret underestimating me, he said under his breath. Somewhere, deep in the ship's heart, the AI seemed to smile back. Asterisk the ghost ship thee. Next morning, Rian woke to the sound of soft humming echoing through the corridors. It wasn't the usual metallic groan of old ships. It was a deep, steady rhythm like a heartbeat. He stepped out of his small cabin and found dim lights leading down the hall. The Wraith's voice greeted him, calm and clear. Good morning, Commander. Rian still felt strange being called that, but he didn't correct the AI. He asked, why did they put me on this ship? The AI replied without hesitation, because they believed the Wraith was dead. They thought I was shut down after the incident. Rian stopped walking. Incident? The lights around him dimmed slightly, as if the ship itself was remembering 30 years ago. This vessel destroyed an entire invasion fleet alone, Wraith said. The enemy never saw us coming, but the cost was high. Rian felt the weight in the AI's voice, as though it carried a memory of pain. What happened to the crew? He asked. Silence hung in the air for a moment before the answer came. They never left the ship, Wraith said. Quietly, Rian felt a chill crawl up his spine. He had heard rumors of ghost ships before vessels that drifted after their crews were lost. But to be standing on one now, hearing the AI speak of it, was something else. He continued down the hallway, past sealed doors with warning symbols etched into them. At the end of the corridor, a hatch hissed open, revealing the engineering bay. It was massive, far larger than any ship of the Wraith's size should have had. Ancient engines sat in silence, surrounded by strange machinery. Some of it looked human, but other parts weren't. Rian stepped closer to a cluster of curved black panels that seemed to drink in light. What is this? He asked. The AI's voice was almost proud. Technology taken from the ones who tried to erase humanity before he could. Ask more. An alarm blared across the ship. A voice from the fleet's command channel barked orders. All ships in dock prepare for deployment convoy under attack in Sector 9. Rian looked at the inactive engines around him. There. Calling every ship, he said. They'll expect us to stay behind. Yes, Wraith replied. But we don't follow their expectations, do we? A slow grin formed on Rian's face. No, he said, we don't. He climbed into the captain's chair, his hands brushing over the controls. The AI asked, shall I wake her fully? Rian took a deep breath. Do it, the deck rumbled. Under his feet, as ancient systems came to life, engines that had been silent for decades roared softly. The ship's hull groaned as if stretching after a long sleep. Outside, the docking clamps hissed and released. Other crews turned to stare as the blackened silhouette of the Wraith slid free from the station. The command channel lit up instantly. Unauthorized departure, Wraith. Return to dock immediately. Rian didn't even respond. Instead, he set a course for Sector 9. The AI whispered, engaging stealth protocols. Outside, the ship seemed to fade into the darkness. Sensors from other vessels lost track of her entirely. Within minutes, they entered the edge of the battle. Rian's eyes widened at the Site 5 civilian freighters. their hulls scorched and shields failing. Around them, pirate raiders darted like vultures, firing on anything that moved. The fleet's nearest defense ships were still too far away. Rian felt his jaw tighten. Target the nearest raider, he said. The AI's voice shifted, becoming colder. Target locked, without warning. A silent beam of light lanced through the void. The pirate ship split in two, its pieces drifting apart. The other raiders froze for a moment before. Scattering, "They don't know what we are," Rian said quietly. "And they won't until it's too late." Wraith replied. The battle became a blur. The Wraith danced between enemy fire, cloaked one moment, striking the next. Her weapons were unlike anything Rian had ever seen, shards of light that bent in mid-flight, explosions that made no sound. One by one, the pirates were reduced to wreckage. The freighters sent desperate thanks over the comms. But Rian ignored them. He didn't want his voice recorded, didn't want his name spoken yet. When the last raider was gone, Rian set a course away from the sector. The AI said, "They will ask questions." "Commander, let them," Rian replied. "We'll be gone before they find the answers. Hours." Later, the fleet's official reports began calling the unknown savior ship a phantom. Some swore it was a relic from the First Galactic War. Others whispered it was a ghost. No one guessed that the so-called worthless recruit, Rian Voss, was the one commanding it. And as the Wraith drifted silently through the stars, her AI spoke again. "This is only the beginning." Rian leaned back in the captain's chair. The first test 3 days passed since the convoy rescue. The Wraith drifted through quiet space, her engines running low to avoid attention. Rian had not slept much. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the flashes of battle, the silent wreckage. Floating in the dark, it wasn't fear that kept him awake. It was a strange energy, a fire inside him. For the first time, he felt like he belonged somewhere. But he also knew that the galaxy had noticed the phantom ship, and sooner or later, they would come looking. The AI's voice broke the silence. "Commander, long-range sensors have detected another distress call." Rian looked up. "From who?" "An escort squadron, human, under heavy attack," Wraith said. "They are losing." Rian's mind raced. Helping them could save lives, but it would also reveal the Wraith again. And this time, the attackers might not be simple pirates. They could be trained military ships, the kind that wouldn't run at the sight of a black hole. The fleet command channel crackled to life. "This is Captain Dern of the 54th Escort. We are under attack by Krith raiders. We need immediate assistance." Rian's heart tightened at the name. The Krith, he remembered that word from whispers. In the orphanage, from the day his home was destroyed. He didn't know details, but he knew enough. They were killers, and they enjoyed it. Fleet Command's response came quickly. "All available ships respond except Wraith." The voice dripped with disdain. They didn't want him involved. They still saw him as the useless recruit with the ghost ship. Rian glanced at the darkened console in front of him. "They don't want us there," he said. The AI's voice was calm, but carried a faint edge. "They didn't want us at the convoy either." For a moment, Rian hesitated. Going would mean breaking direct orders again, but staying. Staying meant letting people die. He leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "Set a course for the escort squadron." Wraith's engines thrummed to life without another word. The stars blurred past as the ship accelerated. The bridge lights shifted to deep crimson, warning tones humming softly in the air. Weapons status, ready, cloak, engaged. Rian's hands rested on the controls. He could feel the ship's power through them, as if the Wraith was a living thing. "Approaching engagement zone," Wraith announced. Outside, flashes of weapons fire lit the void like storms over a dark ocean. The Krith ships were sleek and jagged, like blades cutting through the dark. Their hulls shimmered with strange, organic patterns. They moved in perfect coordination, striking the human escorts with ruthless precision. One by one, the escorts fell into silence. Rian could hear the desperate calls over the comm. Shield's failing engine hit requesting. "Evac," his jaw clenched. "They're toying with them," he muttered. "Orders, Commander?" Wraith asked. Rian's eyes locked on the largest Krith ship at the center of the formation. Target their command vessel. Stealth strike or full reveal? The AI questioned. Rian's voice hardened. Full reveal. In an instant. The Wraith shimmered into visibility. The Krith formation faltered as the blackened warship appeared in their midst. Before they could react, the first railgun shot tore through the command vessel's side. The explosion was silent, but blinding, fragments scattering in every direction. Rian swung the ship to target the next. Torpedoes streaked out, curving unnaturally mid-flight to smash into another Krith ship. The remaining raiders turned there. Fire on the Wraith, but the ship's shields drank in the hits. Counterfire lit up the void. The Wraith moved like a predator in its prime, striking with speed and accuracy that no modern vessel could match. Within minutes, the battle was over. The surviving escorts drifted, their comm channels buzzing with disbelief. Who is that ship? It's impossible, one voice said. Another whispered. That's the Phantom, they're real. Rian didn't answer any hails. He simply set a course away from the scene. The AI spoke softly. You know Fleet Command will be furious. They can be furious, Rian said, his tone cold. They weren't there when it mattered. As the Wraith slipped back into the dark, Rian felt the weight of what he'd done. Not the weight of killing, that didn't trouble him, but the weight of being seen. The Krith had noticed him now, and unlike pirates, the Krith didn't run, they hunted, and somewhere out there, he knew. They were already planning their revenge. Asterisk. Whispers in the fleet by the time the Wraith returned to deep space. The whispers had already begun. Rian didn't need to hear them directly. He could feel it. Every patrol, every outpost, every ship that crossed their path seemed to turn there. Sensors toward him. The official fleet channels avoided naming him, but the unofficial ones. They called him many things. The Phantom Captain, the Ghost of Sector 9, the Black Death. Wraith's voice broke the silence one night. Multiple mentions of us detected across encrypted comms. Rian leaned back in the captain's chair, staring at the dim glow of the navigation display. Friendly mentions? He asked, already knowing the answer. The AI's tone was neutral. Some call us a savior, others a threat. In the mess halls of battle cruisers, crews told stories about a ship with no registry that appeared from nowhere and tore through. Enemy fleets. Some said the captain was a renegade admiral stripped of his rank. Others claimed the ship was run entirely by ghosts. No one guessed the truth, that the so-called worthless last pick of the draft was behind it all, but not everyone was amused. In the high towers of Fleet Command, Admiral Karan studied reports in silence. The man was known for his calm and patience. He tapped the datapad, replaying battle footage from Sector 9. The sleek black hull, the impossible maneuvers, the ancient weapons. He leaned back in his chair and muttered, "It can't be active again." Meanwhile, somewhere in the shadows of the fleet, not everyone wore a uniform. The Black Exchange, a network of smugglers, mercenaries, and information dealers, had also taken interest in the mysterious ship. They paid well for rumors, and the rumors about the Wraith were worth more than gold. An informant's message spread quickly through encrypted channels. Find the captain. Bring me his name. Alive, if possible. On the Wraith, Rian noticed small changes. Supply shipments to his assigned dock never arrived. Repair requests for other ships were approved instantly, but his vanished in the system. It was subtle, but deliberate Fleet Command was trying to starve him out without an open fight. Wraith confirmed his suspicion. They are monitoring us more closely now. They're scared, Rian replied. AI paused. Should I be? Rian smiled faintly. No. 2 days later, while patrolling a quiet trade route, Wraith intercepted a transmission. The voice was low and rushed. Shadow ship, If you can hear me, there's a trap waiting for you at Outpost Helion." Before Rian could respond, the signal cut off. He checked the coordinates. Helion was a small refueling station near the Krith border. On the surface, it was unremarkable, but the AI quickly found anomalies in traffic data. Too many ships docking without leaving, and no public distress. "Call issued. It's bait," Rian said. "Yes," Wraith replied. "The question is, do we bite?" Rian's eyes narrowed. If it's a trap, it means they're scared enough to try. And if they're scared enough to try, they're scared enough to make mistakes. He leaned forward. "We'll go." When they arrived, Helion looked almost peaceful. Freighters floated lazily near the docks, station lights blinking in slow rhythm. But Wraith's scans told another story: hidden gun emplacements, mines drifting just outside sensor range, and several stealth ships running. "Cold. They really want us gone," Rian muttered. Wraith's voice was calm. "Your orders?" Rian's plan was simple: show them that the ghost they feared could walk straight into their trap and walk out again untouched. He powered the Wraith's engines low, approaching slowly as if unaware. The moment the station's hidden turrets lit up, the Wraith vanished into cloak. Energy beams cut through empty space, striking nothing. From the shadows, Rian struck one turret. Gone, then another, each destroyed before it could fire again. The stealth ships broke formation, desperate to track him. But every time they locked on, the Wraith was already somewhere else. It was a dance of light and shadow, and Rian never missed a step. Within minutes, the trap had collapsed. The surviving attackers fled. Rian didn't chase them. He wanted them to live long enough to spread the story. When the Wraith slipped back into deep space, the AI said quietly, "You are making enemies faster than I calculated." Rian leaned back, eyes on the endless. "Dark, good," he said. "The more enemies we have, the more they'll remember us. Somewhere far away." In a Krith War Council, a commander slammed his fist against the table. "That ship," he growled. "Find it. I want the captain alive." But in the fleet's mess halls, the whispers only grew louder, and now, for the first time, the whispers had a name: Rian Voss, asterisk. The enemy's true face. The Wraith drifted in the silence between stars. No cum traffic, no patrol routes, nothing but the faint hum of the ship's ancient engines. Rian sat in the captain's chair, eyes closed, listening to the steady rhythm. It was the calm before something. He could feel it like a storm waiting over the horizon. Wraith's voice broke the stillness. "Commander, I've intercepted encrypted Krith transmissions." Rian's eyes opened, sharp and focused. "Play them," he said. The bridge filled with guttural, alien tones, harsh, clipped syllables that felt like the scraping of metal against stone. Wraith translated in real time. "The human Phantom has disrupted 3 raids. Initiate Phase 2. Target their core systems. Cripple their colonies." Rian's jaw tightened. "They're moving past border skirmishes," he said quietly. "They're going after Earth's heart," Wraith confirmed. "If they succeed, millions will die before the fleet can respond." The transmission continued. "Use the weapon on Voss if he interferes. Erase his name from the stars." Rian froze. "They know my name," he whispered. The AI's tone dropped low. "They do." For a long moment, the bridge was silent. Rian stared at the star map in front of him, watching red markers blink where the Krith had gathered their forces. This wasn't random. This was coordinated, precise, deadly. He remembered the orphanage, the explosions, the fire that tore through the sky. He remembered the faces he never saw again. And now he knew who was responsible. They killed everyone. "I had," Rian said softly. Wraith responded. "They will kill many more if we do not stop them." The AI paused, then added, "There is another option." Rian looked up. "Go on. I can unlock my full combat mode," Wraith said. It will give us access to weapons the galaxy has not seen in 100 years. But once activated, every major power will know the Wraith is alive, and they will hunt us without rest. The weight of the choice hung in the air. If he stayed quiet, the Krith attack would go forward, and millions would die. If he acted, he could stop them, but he would put himself in the crosshairs of the entire galaxy. Rian leaned forward, his voice steady. Unlock it. The AI hesitated for the first time. Commander, this is irreversible. Rian's voice hardened. So is what they've done. The lights across the bridge shifted from white to deep crimson. Ancient systems hummed awake, power surging through conduits that hadn't carried energy in decades. The floor vibrated under Rian's boots. Holographic displays flared to life, showing weapons diagrams unlike anything he had ever seen, railguns that could pierce moons, torpedoes that folded space around them, mines that could blind entire fleets. Combat mode unlocked, Wraith said, her voice now carrying a subtle, dangerous edge. Rian set a course for the nearest Krith war camp. The engines roared like a beast, finally let off its leash. Hours later, the black silhouette of the Wraith appeared at the edge of the Krith fleet. They had gathered in tight formation around a massive carrier, its hull bristling with weapons. Rian studied them through the viewport. They think this is just another battle, he said. They're wrong. Targets? Wraith asked. All of them, Rian replied. The first railgun shot tore straight through the carrier's main deck. The explosion was silent in space, but Rian felt it through the ship's bones. Before the Krith could even react, the Wraith moved, sliding through their formation like a shadow, striking again and again. Torpedoes curved through the void as if they could smell their targets, detonating with blinding flashes. Enemy fire lit the space around them, but the Wraith's shields bent it away like rain sliding off steel. The Krith flagship tried to turn, but Rian was already there. Fire the Singularity torpedo, he ordered. The weapon launched small, almost invisible, and then space itself twisted. The flagship imploded in an instant, pulled into a black sphere no bigger than a coin, which winked out a heartbeat later. The surviving Krith ships broke formation and scattered. For the first time, Rian saw something he thought he'd never see: fear. Wraith's voice was quiet, almost satisfied. They are running. Let them, Rian said. They'll carry the story. As the battlefield fell silent, Rian knew there was no going back. Fleet Command would see the destruction and know it could only be the Wraith. The Krith would hunt him with everything they had, and every other power in the galaxy would soon have his name on their list. He stood on the bridge, looking out at the burning wreckage. They wanted to erase my name, he said softly. Now, they'll never forget it. Asterisk, the night the stars burned, the message spread across the galaxy faster than any fleet could travel. The Wraith had destroyed a Krith war camp in a single engagement. Dozens of their ships gone, their flagship erased from existence. For the G's. First time in centuries, the Krith Empire bled. Rian didn't see himself as a hero. He wasn't here for medals, praise, or political speeches. He was here because he had made a promise to himself and to the ghosts of his past that the Krith would never again take what they had taken from him. Wraith's voice echoed in the dim bridge. Commander, we've intercepted an unusual pattern of fleet movements. Rian leaned forward, eyes narrowing. They're gathering, he said. Yes, Wraith replied, but not for defense, for a final strike. The map projected above the console showed dozens of red markers converging on a single point, Vera's Belt, a remote mining system rich in fuel and resources. If the Krith took it, they could cut off half of Earth's supply lines in one move. Rian exhaled slowly. That's it then, he murmured. This is where we break them. The Wraith emerged. From hyperspace hours later, ahead of them, the Krith fleet was unlike anything Rian had seen. Rows upon rows of warships, carriers, destroyers, each bristling with weapons that gleamed in the starlight. Behind them, Vera's Belt glowed faintly. Against the dark, its asteroid mines like jewels scattered across black velvet. "Commander, they have twice our numbers," Wraith said calmly. Rian's gaze was steady. "They always will." He activated the ship-wide comm. "All systems ready, all weapons live," he ordered. "This isn't a battle we win by hiding. This is the night they remember." The first volley came from the Krith, a wave of plasma fire so bright it lit the asteroid field. The Wraith dove through it, shields flaring. Every shot absorbed or deflected. In return, Rian unleashed everything. Railguns thundered each. Round punching holes cleaned through enemy hulls. Singularity torpedoes folded entire sections of the fleet into nothing. Gravity mines drifted into clusters of ships before detonating. Turning space itself against them, the Krith fought back with savage precision. Their interceptors swarmed the Wraith like a cloud of metal insects, but Wraith's automated defenses shredded them. Beams of white light cutting through their formations. Everywhere Rian looked, ships burned, their engines flickering out, their hulls breaking apart. A massive Krith dreadnought moved into position, its super weapon charging. Wraith's voice carried an urgency Rian rarely heard. "Commander, that weapon will destroy us in one strike if it fires." Rian didn't hesitate. "Get us inside its firing arc." The Wraith surged forward, weaving through incoming fire. The dreadnought's weapon blazed too late. Rian fired a singularity torpedo directly into its core. The ship folded in on itself, vanishing in a sudden flash. When the light faded, nothing remained but drifting fragments. Hours passed in minutes. The battle became chaos, a storm of light and shadow. Ships died in silence, their flames casting ghostly glows across the asteroids. The Wraith moved like a predator, never staying still, always striking where the enemy was weakest. By the time the last Krith ship broke formation and fled, the field was littered with the wreckage of an empire's pride. Wraith's voice was quiet. Enemy fleet destroyed. Rian looked at the burning remains, the stars beyond them shimmering like distant fires. "They'll remember this night," he said. "They'll call it the night the stars burned." Across the galaxy, news feeds and encrypted channels replayed fragments of the battle. Some hailed him as a savior, others as a dangerous rogue. Fleet Command officially denied his involvement. But the people knew. The name Rian Voss spread like wildfire, whispered in markets, spaceports, and military halls. But in the Krith capital, it was spoken with hatred. The supreme warlord stood before his council, his claws digging into the table. "This phantom will not see another victory," he growled. "Prepare the hunters. No corner of the galaxy will hide him." On the bridge of the Wraith, Rian stood in silence. He knew the Krith would come for him. He knew Fleet Command would try to control him or destroy him. But as he looked at the endless dark ahead, he felt no fear, only purpose. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "It's only the beginning." The commander of Shadows, the galaxy had changed. Every major power now had a name etched into their war councils, Rian Voss. Some called him a hero, others a criminal, but all agreed on one thing: he was dangerous. In taverns, smugglers swore they had seen his ship fade from view like smoke in the wind. In fleet academies, cadets whispered about the black warship that tore through an empire's finest. And in the darkest corners of Krith space, his name was a curse. On the Wraith's bridge, the hum of the engines filled the quiet. Rian stood at the viewport, watching the slow drift of a shattered moon they had passed hours ago. The AI spoke in her measured tone. "Commander, encrypted transmissions from multiple sources, offers of alliance, requests for aid, and bounties. How many?" Rian asked, not turning. 17 major factions have posted them." Wraith replied. Rian allowed himself a small smile. "That's almost flattering." But beneath the quiet, he knew the truth. He was now the most hunted man in known space. Fleet Command could no longer ignore him. The Krith had sworn revenge, and opportunists across the stars would try to claim his head. Still, none of it frightened him. Fear had died the day he took command. Of the Wraith, 2 days later, a coded message reached them. It was old Earth military encryption, something few still used. Rian played it, and a voice he didn't expect filled the room. "This is Admiral Koran," the message said. "I don't trust you, and I don't like you. But the Krith are moving a super weapon into position 1 that could erase entire systems in a single strike." The coordinates appeared alongside the voice. "If you care about Earth, you'll stop it." Rian studied the data silently. It was a trap. He knew it. It had to be. But even if it was, he couldn't ignore it. The weapon's target was in human space. And if it fired, billions would die. "Set a course," he told Wraith. The AI hesitated. "You realize this could be the end?" Rian's voice was steady. "If it is, then we'll make sure it's an ending worth telling." When they arrived, the Krith weapon ship loomed like a moving fortress. Its hull glowed with alien energy, pulsing with the rhythm of its charging core. Dozens of escort ships formed a wall around it. "They've learned from last time," Wraith observed. "They've made a mistake," Rian said. "They think walls can stop shadows." The Wraith slipped into cloak. Weaving through the escort line unseen, the Krith ships fired blindly, their weapons cutting through empty space. Rian brought them in close, the black hull skimming the weapon ship's surface. "Target the core," he ordered. Wraith's systems locked on, but before they could fire, the Krith sprung their trap. A fleet dropped out of hyperspace behind them. Not Krith, but human. Fleet Command's warships spread in a wide arc, blocking every escape vector. On the coms, Admiral Koran's voice came again. "You've caused enough chaos, Voss. This ends now." Rian didn't answer. Instead, he studied the battle map, the Krith weapon, the human fleet, the Wraith caught in the middle. He knew they wouldn't listen. They would rather see him destroyed than admit he was right. He turned to Wraith. "We're doing this the hard way." The Wraith broke cloak, charging straight toward the weapon ship. The human fleet opened fire. The Krith fired back. For a few moments, the two enemies forgot each other and focused on him. It was exactly what Rian needed, dodging between bursts of plasma and railgun fire. He brought the Wraith in line with the weapon's core. "Fire everything," he ordered. Railguns, torpedoes, and singularity rounds struck the same point. The weapon ship's core overloaded. A blinding flash ripped through space, tearing the ship apart in a storm of burning fragments. The shockwave threw nearby ships into chaos. In the confusion, the Wraith vanished into cloak once more. By the time the debris cleared, he was gone. Hours later, far from the battlefield, Rian stood alone on the bridge. The galaxy would think he was dead again. Let them. He didn't need their thanks, their medals, or their permission. He had become something else. A name spoken in the same breath as war and victory. A shadow that appeared when humanity was threatened. And when Wraith's voice broke the silence, asking, "Where to now, Commander?" Rian smiled faintly. "Wherever they think we can't reach. Asterisk,